everyone, welcome to lesson 2 of week 2. My name is Mil. In this lesson, we are going to continue with the Navbar that we built in the last lesson, and we're going to look at how to add a navigation menu with drop down. So in the last lesson, we created this navigation and we want to add a drop down link. So let's go to the list item for the navigation and we want to add a drop down menu here. So now for that, we'll add list item class is equal to, now we'll add drop down to the nav item. So write nav item and then drop down. Within the list item tag, we are going to put the anchor tag, and this will have class of nav link, but we are going to add drop down toggle here. So put drop down toggle, and then we want the href is equal to, we are not going anywhere, we just use a hash, and then the id will now be equal to, let's put a value here that we are going to use, and the role, so that when they click the drop down, we are binding this to a particular drop down. So let's say the id here will be, let's call it Navbar drop down. So you can give it any name you want, okay? And then we'll put the role is equal to button, and data es toggle will be equal to drop down. Now let's say for this we want it to be services, what the user will see, or let's say products. Now we want to have a list of these products, so we'll close the anchor tag and we want to have a list of this product. Now when we want to have the drop down list items, we'll create a new list. We'll still use another list here, and we close another list, and then we'll put the list items, which will be the same as what we did here previously. The anchor tag we'll have here will not have the class of nav link, but it will have a class of drop down item. So we're going to copy this and I'll show you how you change that. So we'll now have list item. Now the class here is not going to be nav item anymore, because now this is within the drop down. So we'll just have a class for the anchor tag, and the class is going to be drop down item, right? And then href will be the link to where you want this to go. Let's change this to be products, and here to be services, and let's put something here like consulting, and then we'll repeat the same thing. Let's say here I want training, and we can have a divider. Let's say the last one here I want to say support, but I want to have a divider here like a line. So I can put a list item, I'll close list item, and here I will use the horizontal rule line here, and I'll have a class is equal to drop down divider. So we can see the many classes we have. If we come to the web page and we refresh, we have this not presenting properly. It means we did something wrong. For this another list, we didn't put a class, and we put a class is equal to drop down menu. So you see how missing just one thing can disrupt your site. And now that we have the drop down menu, we can come here and we can see the drop down we have. So you can have several links that are drop down, and when we reduce this, we'll have it like this, and we'll still have a drop down here. So you see how Bootstrap helps you to add style to your page, and you have a responsive style. So the nav item drop down will turn the list item into a drop down container. That's what we did here. And then the drop down toggle will add arrows plus drop down behaviors. The data bs toggle that we use here is going to activate drop down functionality if the value is equal to drop down like we have here. And then we have the drop down menu and the drop down item. The drop down menu will contain the drop down items, and the drop down item will have their own clickable links like the navigation link, and this is just the horizontal line divider. So we've seen how we can add a drop down menu to a nav bar in Bootstrap. Let us look at how we can create a different kind of navigation bar, different from what we have done so far, so that you can understand this even deeper. So we have the link, we have the JavaScript here, and then we have this navigation element here. We have navbar, and now we have navbar expand LG, just so that we can easily collapse and make it resize. We have navbar dark, just to control the color of all the logos and items on the navigation bar. And let's say the background we want here is primary, for instance. Let's change it from dark to primary. If you refresh here, you'll see it is different. And so let me expand this so you see how you can change that. So you decide the color. You can have a different color scheme, different from all of this BG primary, and create yours, and then you can add your custom style. Then we have a container. Let's just make this container fluid instead of just container. And then we want to add this Navbar brand, and this brand is to give you, let's just call this my site. Let it be like a template for a site. We have the button that we use to collapse and resize. The hamburger button is controlled by this button, and this button is linked to everything within this div of the collapsible navbar. Now when we have the collapsible navbar, we say collapse navbar collapse, and then we call this main navbar, because if we change this, we have to change the name on the button here. Okay, so we'll call it main nav. And now for the another list class, we have navbar nav. Let's just use this. Let's say the margin starts to be auto, and let's remove all of this. I want to change the style style a little, and then we have the home. Let's have the drop down next. Let me remove all of this. So we'll have li class is equal to nav item drop down, nav list, and we have all of this, and we'll have services, and let's change this to web design. So here we have the UI class is drop down menu. We can also add a class here, drop down menu end, and this aligns the drop down menu to the right. So we'll add drop down menu end there to align it to the right. And so let's say we have, let's say mobile app, and then we have, let's say SEO optimization, right? So we'll remove the divider. Now we can remove this form, and we can have another list item. The class will be equal to nav item, and we want to have the link for the contact. So let's say nav link href is equal to contact, close and contact. So you see how we just changed the whole design that we have. We aligned this to the right. When we said here we use MS Auto here, and then when we did the drop down menu end, we aligned to the right there. So we can always change all of the values so that we can achieve what we want there. So we can see this is at the end here, not like we had it before, starting at this point. So you can add more navigation and it will keep shifting. Let's just call this item 1, and we'll put another one, item 2, and you can add more, and you see it aligns to the right, and when we resize it collapses. Okay, so this is how we actually use the navigation, and we use the different values for the navbar. You can refer to your lesson resource, research more online, and you see how you can continue to change all of these values to suit the design that you want. So for this background, we can change it to BG light if you want. We have primary, and it will be like a light background, or dark, almost colorless, or almost white but not completely white, and you can see that. But if you do that, you have to make sure you change this from dark to, let's say, navbar light, and then when we refresh, we can see everything that we have. So you want to play around with all of the navbar text classes. When we have BG light, we have navbar light. We have BG dark, navbar dark. When we have BG primary, we'll still use dark. When we have BG warning, you want to use navbar light like this. So we can do BG warning, and then you're going to have this in yellow. Okay, so you decide what kind of colors you want. You can have your own custom styles if you understand CSS properly, but Bootstrap is to make your responsive design even faster. So you can always have a drop down header. You can have a disabled option just as we have the active. You can also have a drop down with all the search and logins at the top. You can have multi-level drop downs, which is not native to Bootstrap, but we can create that. So I left some code in your lesson resource for you to try that out yourself. So one of the best practice for you to do is to always have this navbar expand every time you have your navigation bar. You always want to use MS Auto that we use there to push items to the right, also as we did here, to align to the right, or to push items to the right. You want to always include the JavaScript so that it can always work on drop downs. I know before Bootstrap 5 drop downs used to rely on pop-up, yes, but now it's already inbuilt in the Bootstrap, and so we don't need that include. Then you want to keep drop down items short and simple, and you want to always use active class to highlight the current page all the time. So we have something we call the nav tabs and pills. Let's say we have this nav bar already, and we want to create like a tab here. So after this navigation, let's say I want to create the nav tabs. So let's say on another list here. Now the value for this class now, when we want to use nav, is just the base class for navigation list. So we have a nav like this, and we want this to be like nav pill. So let's use nav pills, and the ID will be equal to, let's say, pills tab, and then the role will be tab list. So what I want to do is to have like a tab that will toggle between the tabs to see different things. All right, and now we want to have the list item, and within this list item we want to have a button. But first of all, we will use the class of nav item, and then we'll have a button. Let's use the button for this, and the button, you can use not only use a button, you can use an anchor tag, but you see how it looks with a button. So the button class, let's use nav link, and we'll make the first one, let's say, is active, and then we'll use the data bs toggle to be equal to the data bs target will now be equal to, let's call this page 1, let's use p1, and I'll show you how we use this to link to the target. So we'll put here p1. Now for this button, we have done this. Let's call this button first page like this. If I refresh my page, you'll see this first page button here, but we don't see what it's doing yet. Now I want to have a second one. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to change just the ID here. We'll change this to p2, the target to p2, and we'll use the hash just for the p1, so there has to be a pound sign like this, and I'll change this to second page. Okay, then I want to now have a div tag beneath this, so that we'll use this to target the different containers that will open. So you can style this further to have like a tab page here. So let's say we have a div, and now the class here will be equal to tab content empty3. We'll close div, and now we'll have the two pages. All right. So one of the page will be linked to the first list item and the other to the second list item. So let's have two pages here. We'll still use the div. We'll say class is equal to close div. So the class here is going to be equal to tab pane. So tab pane like this. Let's say we want, let's just put fade show active. So you look at all of these values, and then the ID now, the target is going to be, let's say P1. This is for page 1, right? And let's put here content placeholder for page 1 like that. And then let's do for the second page, and we'll put here to be P2. Now this one will not be active, and then we'll put content placeholder for page 2, because we now use this ID attributes to bind them. Now when I refresh this and is active here, when I come to the second, we can't get it toggling because something is wrong. So let's go back there and see what we did wrong. Okay, I have two active class here, so only one has to be active there. I think we handled the problem, and when I refresh now, this is active, and when we come here for second page, so you can actually style this button so it will be like a beautiful tab where you can have, click on this, you see the content. So even while you have a navigation bar, you can always have your tab page. So refer to your lesson resource to understand the definitions of some of these controls so that you can better create your own styles and design. Thank you, and see you next week.